So in this segment, we're going to be discussing the riots. I didn't do it because I was on break, basically, unforced leave. So I thought we'd just do it now, and we'll go back through it a little bit and discuss some of the people not involved per se, but who said some things that may have done incitement, or depending on how you want to define it, or said some really stupid things as the kind of riots happened and just before them. So we'll start with good old Nigel.
In the immediate aftermath of the Southport stabbings, that engaged in conspiracy theories about who did this and about whether the police were telling the truth. You said, and I'm quoting here, some reports suggest he, the man charged, was known to the security services. Which reports?
This is the problem, isn't it? One of the reasons the Southport riots were as bad as they were is we weren't told the truth. There were stories online from some very prominent folks with big followings, Andrew Tate, etc.
So essentially what he's saying is,
my source is that I made it the fuck up.
Because you can find a source to back up most things. And so when we look at Andrew Tate, how would Andrew Tate have known? Who would his sources have been, considering that the information was concealed by the police, effectively because the perpetrator of the stabbings in Southport was a minor. So they couldn't release certain bits of information unless a judge allowed it, and a judge did allow it. So the guy he cited here, Andrew Tate, is got new charges now for allegations of acts with a minor. So, you know, this news came out after Nigel Farage cited him. But what Nigel Farage, I think, wanted was a source that he could say, well, you know, this person said this, so we need to ask X question. You know, Andrew Tate is claiming that the person who committed these actions is a Muslim, and he came across the channel, and then you had riots ensuing. You know, because, you know, people made things up. And I don't blame the justice system for that, in terms of, you know, that's not a bad rule to have, you know, that you conceal certain bits of information because the person is a minor who has committed the actions. They're under the age of 18. But what happened was people used that in order to fill essentially the internet with misinformation regarding the perpetrator of the stabbings. And so, you know, my man over here, you know, obviously saw that as an opportunity to say, well, you know, I'm not saying these things happened, but this person is saying this, and therefore we need to ask the question, why has this happened?
etc., suggesting the man had crossed the English Channel in a boat in October 2023. Other suggestions that he was an active Muslim, and much of this led to the riots that we saw.
But you amplified that because you said some reports suggest.
I asked a very simple question.
And there he does. He kind of explains it himself. I ask simple questions. That's all he says he does. You know, he says, I never said he was one of these things. I'm asking, is he these things? Why are these people quoting these things, saying he's this and that?
Was this person known or not? Now,
to the security services.
Absolutely.
And that's a perfectly legitimate question, which was raised by Yvette Cooper.
But he knew that question I wouldn't be able to be answered because the kid's a minor. That's the problem.
Nigel Farage, you didn't just do that, did you? You said some reports suggest he was known to the security services. Those reports were from a fake news website.
Yep.
We'll be discussing that.
Amplified by Russian state TV and, as you mentioned, Andrew Tate. Which ones were you looking at?
Which adds to what I was asking for. Give us some clarity. Remember, the London Bridge attacker, we knew within an hour that this person was known to the security services. Whenever in Northern Ireland there was a terrorist outrage, very quickly people were told the background of the perpetrator.
But you didn't
I
just
asked
stop
a
there.
very simple...
But you knew that information wouldn't be made public because I think the police were clear the perpetrator was a minor. So you must have known. You must have known this would be the outcome.
You said some reports suggest he was known to the security services. Those reports were a fake news website, Russian state TV,
Well,
and
I could have said.
So which one was it, Nigel Farage?
I could have said. Some reports suggest he crossed the channel last October. Some reports suggest he's an active
And all
Muslim.
of that was unfounded.
I did none of those things. What I asked for was clarity. We didn't get clarity,
didn't
and
just
I would
do that.
argue that what happened in Southport would not have been of the same magnitude had the truth been told, and told very, very quickly. It wasn't...
But the thing is, that could never have happened because of the state of UK laws. That's the problem. It has to go to a judge.
For many hours that we learnt more.
No, you're right. But that was the chronology of it. But you don't need to amplify the mystery.
I asked the question.
But to
I asked the questions.
Site quotes some reports suggest the reports are fake, and you accept that now. They're misinformation.
There were thousands of fake reports everywhere,
and you cited
all
them.
of which puts the emphasis on the questions being answered, which they weren't.
So did you accidentally fall for that misinformation?
No.
So that's what you know. Why are these people spreading these stories? We have questions to ask. You know, was he a person who crossed the channel? Was he a practicing Muslim? All of these questions, we need answers, and that's how he does it. That's how you spark outrage. You make stuff up like this. And you know, Tommy Robinson, who, when asked the question, "Show me where I incited a riot, what have I said?"
Stop the fucking boats. Get them out of them hotels. Get them gone. Put them on boats and send them back. Okay? They shouldn't be here. They're endangering the safety of our families. Men will rise up. We're always going to rise up.
Rise up and do what?
They have to rise up to defend their families. You've brought this war on our...
Brought this a war on our shores. That sounds like fighting talk, Tommy. And so he, you know, is asking the question here, where have I incited a riot? And, you know, he got answers. You know, it's just crazy to me that, you know, this dude in particular as well is their hero. It's crazy. And, you know, we've talked about his tax affairs before, so we're not going to discuss it in this video, but we are going to discuss other things. You know, and, you know, Nigel asked if he's worried about a knock on the door for asking, you know, he says no, because, you know, all he's claiming is I just ask questions. Which is his modus operandi. I think that's the word for it. You know, Nigel Farage's social media activity. Do you think that should be investigated? Asked James O'Brien. And you have here Neil Basu suspects that the authorities will be looking at anybody who might have incited the riots. But I think Farage will get away with it, as I've spoken to people before, because he's smart enough to say that all I did was ask questions, and that's what he'll keep claiming. But you know, when it comes to language, there's other things to discuss.
But she really wants to stop hordes of people crossing the channel. Susanna, we are full up. There's no room, and that's what she's talking about.
So, you know, when you talk about, you know, the conversation around immigration and things like that,
across the country have been terrified of what has been going on. Terrified of the Islamophobia, the racism, the hatred directed at minority communities. And those politicians who have pandered to this, who've fanned the flames of this, they've got to be called out.
I bet he's glad he's not a politician anymore, because he said politicians should be called out.
People who shouldn't be here, when they come from countries like Bangladesh or wherever, we're going to send them back.
We're going to send them back. That's what he's saying. You know, it sounds a bit, you know, not incitement, but, you know, kind of, you know, a bit, little tinge of, not racism, but just a hatred of the other, I think. He got Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds saying that, you know, he wants the people that have insurance claims because of the riots settled very quickly. I also agree with that. I think maybe they could tweak the laws in these kind of cases in order to help people who've had, you know, their businesses and their homes damaged, you know, vehicles, whatever, in order to get compensation from the insurers. I think, you know, I agree with this 100%. You know, speaking of which, we're looking at some of the people who were sentenced. She wins the award for dumbest writer, and she managed to score herself 20 months in jail. The court heard that she was a vulnerable homeless person, having recently fled domestic violence. She tagged along with friends to the protest after bumping into them outside a shop. And, you know, all of this description is probably true. It is quite sad that, you know, she was a person who had to flee domestic abuse. Why she thinks getting involved in a riot is a good idea, I don't know. Why she thinks, you know, throwing a bin, I think it's on fire, at the police is a good idea, I don't know. Genuinely just so many questions to ask, to be honest. Bizarre. You've got this lady who threw a brick at police in Hartlepool. She's jailed. Just crazy. There was a dude who tried to kick in a police officer's window. That's it. He was arrested for he's been jailed for 3 years. The situation with the UK prisons is such that it's pretty dire in terms of them being full. So, you know, the Labour government are going to have to figure out a way to deal with that. I think they are doing relatively okay with that. And this, my personal favourite story, which is a woman who allegedly incited and filmed her teenage son during the riots, charged with rioting and child cruelty. So, a Belfast mother of 6 allegedly incited and filmed her 15-year-old son as he attacked police 3 separate nights of rioting, the High Court has heard on Thursday. Prosecutors claimed she recorded the schoolboy throwing a petrol bomb, fireworks, and masonry amid repeated episodes of violence on the city streets. The 47-year-old accused who accompanied him when he targeted migrant-owned cafe in racially motivated disorder, a judge was told. Crown Counsel Fiona O'Kane said she has engaged in pretty scandalous conduct. So not only has she got involved in these riots, not only did she encourage her son to get involved in these riots, allegedly, she filmed it. So, I can't wait for the judge to say, play that video back, because what would you want? She was present throughout, filmed her son, and was seen interacting with other rioters. It's just crazy to me, honestly. Like, imagine being this stupid, honestly. Just the levels of idiocy are wild here, And speaking of the so-called English hero, Tommy Robinson leaves the UK on eve of court case. A guy who doesn't care for British law, a guy who's got all sorts of tax allegations against him. A senior judge has issued an arrest warrant for far-right campaigner Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as his alias Tommy Robinson, after learning he had left the country on the eve of a major legal case against him. Lennon left the UK by Eurotunnel on Sunday night at the time, despite having been arrested by Kent police under counter-terrorism powers. The 41-year-old had been due on court on Monday for allegedly breaching an alleged order not to repeat lies about a Syrian refugee. So, he carried on making the lies, and I think he does these contempt causes to keep himself relevant in the news. In July 2021, Syrian teenager Jamal Hijazi won £100,000 in damages in a major defamation battle against Yaxley Lennon, who had falsely accused him of being a violent thug, claims that spread across social media. So he lost this case. He continues to allegedly spread lies about this kid who he defamed, and the judge had to step in and say, stop doing that. And that's why he did this whole thing, playing that movie in central London, knowing what he would come to, because he knows how to light a match. What's it called, the blue torch paper or whatever it's called, and just let it go. Honestly, Adam Pater, this is quite interesting actually. This was one of the interesting bits of the article. Representing the Solicitor General, the government minister overseeing contempt of court allegations, told Mr. Justice Johnson, who's the judge, that despite Yaxley Lennon knowing of this morning's case, he played the film again to his supporters on that Saturday. The barrister said the public showing had been a flagrant and admitted breach of court order not to repeat the false claims. The EDL leader left for the Channel Tunnel. He allegedly refused to cooperate. He was arrested, held until 10 p.m. before being released on unconditional bail and leaving the country. Mr. Pater said, "We understand he failed to cooperate with a port stop and search. The implication is he was attempting to leave the country and therefore not intending to attend his hearing this month. The information that we have is that he was not within jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. He's been spending a significant time outside of the UK. He returned for the purpose of publishing the film and sought to immediately leave the jurisdiction." So I think he knew he might have faced more trouble for playing that video. So what he did was he went to central London, played the video, and he ran off. That's who their hero is. And speaking of the misinformation that we mentioned before, Bernie Spathoff has been arrested on suspicion of stirring racial hatred by spreading a fake Muslim name for the suspect of the Southport attack. So this allegedly is the person who helped spread the misinformation. Foreign agitators, including the Russian state news channel, had leapt upon the false claims. The Southport suspect was a small boat immigrant. There had been claims this played a role in provoking days of riots and unrest. Last week, the journalist reported that Spoforth was a mum of 3, swimwear designer, and MD of clothing company. Sounds like she has a relatively decent career. She lived with family in a big house in rural north and is an anti-lockdown, anti-net zero campaigner. We didn't name her then. So this person has a list of conspiracies. We now believe the public interest in naming her outweighs concerns of a legal battle. So fair play to them. And yeah, this is one of the people allegedly involved in spreading the initial misinformation. So, be interesting what happens with her case. And this one that is closer to home for me personally is the wife of a Tory councillor. And she got arrested for incitement. She said, quote, "Mass deportation now, set fire to all the effing hotels, full of the, can I say that word? Sure. Bastards, for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them." Ironically, her husband's a politician. Says, I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. And ironically, it does make you racist. So be it. And yeah, the last tweet I want to go through: Nigel Farage was rehabilitated, so it's from Zara Sultana, by TV when it paid him £1.5 million to appear on I'm a Celeb. He's also the joint second for most appearances on BBC Question Time. And she says, when I say the entire media class is complicit in the normalisation of Islamophobia and anti-migrant rhetoric, I mean it. And 100% that's true. The fact that he got a season pass on Question Time is still crazy to me. And I know he made himself available to be on every week and whatever, but the fact that they couldn't get a different guest to represent that wing of that wing of kind of British ideology, I guess, or English ideology, is just crazy to me. Just crazy. A guy who openly said, in my opinion, racist things about Bulgarians and Romanians, and he just gets away with it. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. It's just been a crazy couple of weeks, honestly, the riots and all. But I'm glad it's over. I think, you kind of tell it's over when it was over because of the fact that the counter-protesters came out and in very large numbers, and they're not as popular as they think they are. When they won the Brexit referendum, they thought, the country's with us, they're racist and what have you. But the thing with England is they don't back riots. Never. They rarely ever back riots. I don't think I've ever seen it where the public's on side of rioting. I think any kind of minimal disruption, people lose their minds here. So the idea that the public would back the riots, I don't think they would. And in fairness, they didn't. They didn't. And so yeah, this lot have got themselves time in prison. Well, I think they can really think about what they've done, and I'm sure they'll talk about two-tier policing and all of this kind of stuff, and they'll be mad about other kind of protests that won't clamp down on like this. And I don't think that you got footage of someone flinging a bin on fire at police. You've got essentially footage of them attacking police officers, throwing bricks at them, they set fire to a police station in Sunderland. Yeah, no, it's kind of over for them. Someone got 10 years in prison by the looks of it. David Wilkinson, who was jailed for 6 years, John Honey were part of a baying mob who attacked a car controlling 3 Romanian men in Hull. And so they were angry at kind of Muslim people, Asian, people from the in and around the Indian subcontinent, and they attacked Romanian people. This guy looted a shop, so this guy, he got the longest sentence, is mostly for looting and being part of this mob. But yeah, no, it's just kind of nuts to me, honestly. But yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on this to see what comes out, see what kind of more sentences are being passed down. But there's not much more to say about this one apart from the fact that I'm glad the riots are over. I know some people are worried about me because obviously I'm Asian, and so they're worried in case anything happened to me or my family. It's been fine where I live, honestly. I appreciate everyone's concern, but I'm fine. Thankfully, not much happened where I live, which is always, sometimes it's a bit boring here, but sometimes boring is good because it's safe. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.